2001, A Street's Odyssey. A grand title for just a short piece of video of East Street shot in 2001 with a brief look at what came before and what has happened since. There's not time to say all there is to say here, but if you'd like to know more about the commercial and residential history of the street, you might want to have a look at that book on East Street mentioned at the end. It's 490 pages long, so obviously a lot more than you'll get in this 12-minute video. This road has many names: the A2, Watling Street, London Road, and in the town this part of it is called East Street because it's the eastern section of the main road that runs through Sittingbourne. Until the M2 motorway was built in the 1960s, it was the main route from London to Dover and so was important. We start by standing halfway down the street, looking eastwards back at the residential area towards the end of East Street and the start of Canterbury Road. We're on the northern side of the road, and across the road from us is the Old Oak pub at number 68 on the southern even numbered side of the road. This began here as a beer house in about 1870. Although still a pub here in 2001, it finally closed in 2013 and was converted back to residential use. And the shop next to it at number 66, which used to be the Plaza Cafe, it was already split into two here in 2001, and in 2020 it's a fast food outlet in one half and a barber's shop in the western half. The buildings in East Street range from Tudor to modern. These days East Street is too far from the centre of town to get as many customers as the High Street, and in 2001 there were several boarded up shops and an empty pub here. Over the last 10 years, we've seen a gradual return to residential use in some parts of the street after 150 years of commercial bustle. But there has also been an influx of entrepreneurial people from different parts of Europe, and a new flavour and perhaps a new lease of life has been growing. Behind the trees next to the pub is the doctor's surgery known as the Chestnuts at number 70. This house has been a doctor's surgery since 1889, although the building is at least 50 years older. Further on we can see some modern houses built at right angles to the main road. These are built on land once occupied by some houses which were set back from the road and known as the French houses. And between them and the Chestnuts used to be the cinema, established in a former Wesleyan school building. This was called the Empire from 1910 up to 1930 and then renamed the Plaza until it closed in 1952. It was demolished in the 1970s and new flats were built on the land. The shops and tall building we can see beyond these were at one time a post office and co-op buildings at numbers 84 to 88. The tall shop, number 88, built in the 1890s, was once the co-op butchery department, and this whole area of the street was at one time or another owned and traded in by the Sittingbourne Cooperative Society. Although probably still a shop in 2001, today this has reverted to residential use. The smaller shops here also once included the co-op confectionery shop. The Wheatsheaf pub beyond that, which had a rear yard and a coach house, was trading around the beginning of the 19th century. This is probably the only remaining trading pub in East Street today. Next to the pub is the junction with South Avenue. At this junction, the roundabout linking St Michael's Road, East Street and South Avenue was built at the end of the 1970s, and a new entrance to Shakespeare Road was formed. Beyond the roundabout you can see residential houses on the right. This is not the eastern end of East Street, but almost. Coming back towards us, and between the roundabout and where this video was shot from, are the former church, which then became a martial arts centre, then the area where the main co-op department shops were, now replaced by Aldi, and then the former territorial drill hall, which is today used by another church. There is one other junction on this north side of the road, and that is West Lane. Also on this north side of the street, between the West Lane Junction and where this part of the 2001 video was shot from, are now a row of shops from numbers 79 down to 69. Here we are looking at numbers 69 down to 61 on the north side of the road. The Sittingbourne Heritage Museum is here at number 67, and it tells the story of the history of our town. It's well worth a visit, but then I would say that, wouldn't I? Looking west from number 67 down to number 59 as the bus goes past, the boarded up pub on the left is the Plough at number 58. There were 4 pubs in East Street in 2001, although the Plough, as we saw, was closed up and would soon be demolished. It was demolished in 2005 and was found to have been much older than had first been thought, built in fact in the 17th century. Concealed items behind chimneys and under floorboards included many items of interest, including the oldest set of women's stays found in England, since studied by academics around the world. Today in 2020, there was just one pub left open in East Street as we entered the COVID-19 lockdown. At number 59 on the north side is a large double-fronted house built around 1870, which was a butcher's shop for many years. It was a florist shop here in 2001 and since then has been a hairdresser's, though now converted to residential use. Looking west again, next to the Plough, we see the house at number 54 to 56, which was demolished around 2007 and has been replaced with a newly built double-fronted cottage. Next to that is an old building at 50 to 52 that was originally 2 cottages, but was in 2001 and is still today a carpet shop. And at number 48 is a shop that had long been a second-hand shop, but was demolished in 2011 to be replaced with a residential building. Across the road we see the postman's delivering to the newsagents at numbers 44 to 46. This is a 300-year-old timber-framed building that was 2 cottages. These have been all kinds of shops over the years, but there's been a newsagents here since the 1930s. Beyond the newsagents, there's another new residential building at number 40 to 42, and a taller block next to that named Ronald's Court, and these have all replaced older shops. In 2001, these 2 new cottages at numbers 36-38 had already replaced the old shops which had once stood here. Next door at number 34 there remains a little older shop which had been a hairdresser's for nearly 100 years, but which since 2001 has been a dental laboratory and a dog groomer's. Beyond that is the current location of the Central Pie Shop, which moved here in 1973. This building was built in 1957, replacing the previous shops. In 2001, the buildings after that were a fancy dress shop at numbers 26 to 28 and an Indian restaurant at number 24. The shop, in a building that was once a forge, is now called the Old Forge House and is a museum. The restaurant, called the Empress at number 24, is still there today. On the south side we can see this row of terraced cottages dated around 1830. In the 1880s they were gradually used as shops and converted appropriately, this lasting for just over 100 years. In 2001, numbers 25 and 27 are trading as revival high quality new and used musical instruments and accessories. But hardware, books, home crafts and haircuts have all been sold here. And number 23 is an empty shop called 2000. By 2005, these cottages had all been converted back for residential use. Next to that we see Webb's, the ironmonger's and hardware store that was so valued by the town and had been there since 1910, though this distinctive building was built after a disastrous fire in 1912. Webb's, the business, left the town in 2008 to be replaced by an off-licence. And Forster's, the school outfitters, at numbers 17 to 19, in a building which may be about 300 years old. And beyond that, Swale House and the junction with Bell Road, Crown Key Lane and the High Street. As we pan around looking west towards the centre of town, the pub that we are standing outside of here is the Ship Inn. It was still open in 2001, but has now, you guessed it, been converted back for residential use. We are now at the main junction with the High Street, and on the northeast corner of the junction were once almshouses. These were replaced by shops and then a car sales area before a new office block was built here in the mid-1970s. No tenants were found, and so this was eventually taken over by Swale Borough Council in 1983 and named Swale House. On the southeast corner we are standing where the former Three Kings pub once stood. Demolished in the 1970s, it had been here since the 17th century. And as we look west up Sittingbourne High Street, one cannot help wondering how this will all look to people in another 300 years.